Amnesty International's annual report 2022 highlights double standards throughout the world on human rights and the failure of the international community to unite around consistently applied human rights and universal values.
Today we're here in Colombo where the South Asia regional launch of the Amnesty International Global Annual Report 2023 will be taking place. The keynote speaker for today is the Senior Director, Dipros Muchena, who will be giving his thoughts on the report and also will be part of the launch.
Human rights came under attack. We saw repression of the most calculated order, and this repression did not pick and choose where it happened, because we saw global protest movement being faced with brute force, with killings, with mass arrests, and with all manner of human rights violations, not least in this country, in this region, and in this continent. How to use resources of the state to repress rights, and how to use denial of protection of human rights to undermine the very spirit of human rights. This happened in Ethiopia, this happened in Myanmar, this happened in Sri Lanka, this happened in Afghanistan, this happened in India. So around the world, repression and assault of the protest movement became commonplace. This year, Amnesty launched a global right to protest initiative, because we really believe that for freedoms to thrive, people should be given an opportunity to protest. In Sri Lanka, police used live ammunition, used tear gas, water cannons against largely peaceful protests. We're calling upon governments, in particular governments of South Asia, to stop using the pretext to repress dissent, to prevent discussions of human rights in countries, to stop the practice of deploying legislation not even needed as a way of demobilizing protest movement and accountability movement that has emerged in the last couple of years. We believe that it is important at this particular time that a new leadership imagination emerges in the global south to deal with the many of the global crises that our report mentions. It is one thing to call for solidarity when our allies are under attack. What we've been disappointed with is countries completely demobilizing when they need to be mobilizing for human rights protection. And this is something that is taking place in particular in this region.
Headed by Tyagiruwan Patirana, joined by Swastika Arulingam and Ambika Satkunanathan, a panel discussion was held highlighting the Aragalaya and the unjust forces used against the peaceful protesters. Given the current economic crisis and human rights situation in Sri Lanka, Dipros Muchena, Senior Director for Human Rights Impact at Amnesty International, aims to use his presence to highlight and stress on the urgent need to protect and promote the rights of the island's 22 million people.
We are pleased to be launching the annual report here in Sri Lanka on behalf of the movement of Amnesty International across the world. The right to protest was severely attacked from Cape to Cairo, from Cairo to Colombo, and that it is a reminder now that governments exist to protect the rights of people to express themselves, and enacting legislation and deploying legislation, including use of force, does not diminish the human spirit to fight for rights. And therefore it's important at this particular moment that Sri Lankans join the rest of the world in demanding rights, in protecting rights, and in calling out double standards so that we can become a more fairer and just world.
Yamini Mishra, Regional Director for South Asia at Amnesty International, had this to say.
Since last year, we have seen with great awe the way people in Sri Lanka have protested, and in fact, in different parts of the world, I remember colleagues watching the protest live and feeling motivated by what public action can do. It was worrying though to note that the government clamped down on the protesters, sometimes by unjustified use of force. We are well aware of the fact that there were prolonged detentions, people were charged with anti-terrorism laws, there was use of water cannons, etc., which would fall outside the purview of the use of such measures as justified in the international human rights law. One big request for us to government of Sri Lanka would be to stop the clampdown on peaceful protests, which I think is essential to any democracy.
Ambika Satkunanathan, spoke on the importance of the Amnesty International's report.
So I think that the Amnesty's report is important because it is a holistic report in the sense that it connects the importance of different kinds of rights and also shines the light on a very important right, which is the right to dissent, because it is only, and the freedom of expression, because it's only by doing this that you can hold the state accountable and ensure that your rights and the rights of others are protected.